Because I remember the day the bus blew up. It was near my home.
Really?
And I've always wondered what happened because nobody knew. Nobody said anything about what happened.
So for people who don't know what 실미도 is about, right? The story's about some criminals who were trained to become soldiers in the...
Commandos, yes.
Commandos, yes. Commandos in the South Korean army.
Right.
And then they broke out and tried to go and take over the country, right?
Well, basically what it is that they were trained to go to North Korea to assassinate North Korean president.
Right.
But they were trained, but the mission gets canceled.
Right.
So they were left there for 3 years with the same training.
Right.
And then they actually wanted to go, but nobody says go.
Right.
And they couldn't stay there anymore, so they wanted to talk to someone, but they didn't know who to talk to.
Right.
So they decided to break out and actually hijack a bus, and they were going somewhere to talk to someone. We don't know who they were trying to talk to, but as you can see in the movie, they blow themselves up in the middle. So that's a basic story. And at the time, newspaper actually said in the morning that these guys were from North Korea, commanders from North Korea.
Right.
But in the afternoon, they changed the story, saying that these are some AWOL soldiers, and that was it. And after that day, nobody was allowed to ask any questions. That nobody said anything until the movie came out.
Right. Right. So it was inherently, I mean, that's an exciting, crazy story inherently in and of itself, right?
Right.
And then you read that story, what'd you say?
1993.
93?
Right.
In 동아일보?
주간동아.
주간동아. And so you read it there, and you said, this is a good movie.
Right.
Huh? Who wrote the script then?
Well, we went through 7 different writers.
Really?
Yes, and we did a vast amount of researches. There were actually 6 survivors who are not the commandos, but the people who trained them and guarded them. And there were 6 survivors. We found them all, and we interviewed all of them. And actually, you have to actually make a movie. It's not a documentary, so we have to tweak some of the stories.
Sure.
And, some are very, very graphic. We can't really show that on the movie. So it took almost 3 years to write the final script. And the final one that was written by a lady named Hee-jae Kim Hee-jae.
Okay.
She's quite famous now because of that. And that was a script, the director accepted.
So you put it in the hands of the director to choose the final script, huh?
Actually, I came to him with the 2nd or 3rd draft. I locked him in the room. I kid you not. I locked him in the room, and I was outside the door. I waited for him 2 hours. I'm not leaving until you read this. And he actually came out and said, well, I like the story, but script is not so great, so let me find a writer also. So he went through another 3 or 4 writers. And then finally, this lady came through, I think the assistant director introduced me to her and actually brought her to the director. And, the director really liked what she was saying, so she decided to write. And she wrote the final version.
Okay. So you had all the information and all that. You had the historical information.
That's
you
correct.
Had done the interviews.
That's correct.
But you couldn't get the script you wanted until you met Kim
Hee-jae, right?
Hee-jae.
I mean, stories are there. I mean, facts are there.
Yeah.
It's like cooking, same material, same spices,
same
how you do it
ingredients.
is very important. Same thing.
Yeah. The way that you cook ends up being the big difference.
That is correct.
Okay. So, Kim Hee-jin?
Kim Hee-jae.
Hee-jae.
Right.
Kim Hee-jae ended up writing the final script, and then was it easy to get the film made, or were people just, yes, this is a great film, it's gonna...
Well...
This is, what year did 실미도 finally come out?
Come out in Christmas Eve of 2003.
Christmas Eve of 2003.
Right.
Okay.
And actually this movie, the script that I had was submitted to Columbia TriStar. Well, now it's called Sony now, Sony Pictures. And Sony Pictures at the time was very interested in producing local films in Korea because Korean films was going up.
Sure, sure.
And
was that the shitty influence? Like Shiri
oh, that's correct. Well,
Shiri had made a big hit, right? I mean, that was like, to my memory, that was the first Korean film that did really well.
That is correct. Shiri made all the difference, actually.
Right.
So they said they would like to invest in the movie. And it was very surprising because if they would have invested in the movie, it would have been the very first Korean film that U.S. major has ever invested in. Yeah, right. And the only problem is, after I contacted Director Kang, he says, well, originally the budget was around $4.5 million. It still was a big budget for a Korean film. But the director said, well, this is not going to be enough. I would like to use over $7 million, right? So when I submitted the new budget to Sony, they said, well, maybe not.
Not interested.
Right. Well, they were a little reluctant, but I mean, almost immediately, Director Kang at the time was running a company called Cinema Service, which had become a big company at the time. So we'll fund it. So
really?
they actually funded. Even you know, after we got the funding, a lot of people says, you know, why do you want to do such a dark story, you know, and especially army story, you know?
Right.
You know, there's a saying in Korea, the women hate, you know, army stories because all the men are talking about army stories themselves, right?
Yeah.
So basically, it's an army story and very dark story.
Yeah.
So, you know, not too many people were too excited about it actually. But only thing was that we are telling some national secret, making it into a movie, which was never done before.
Right.
And they were excited about that, but story-wise, I don't think they were too excited.
Wow. In hindsight, that was a big mistake, huh?
Well,
that was an incredibly successful movie. Probably that's one of the top 10 grossing movies ever, is it not?
Currently number 5.
Currently number 5.
Yeah, it goes down one step every year, it seems like.
Well, so sooner or later there's going to be other movies that come out, but it's certainly one of my favorite Korean films.
Thank you.
And there's, I really enjoy Korean cinema. But there's only a few like amazing films that Korea has put out, and Shilmido is certainly one of the best films that Korea has ever made. It must have been very interesting interviewing all these people who were there and worked with what was it like interviewing those sorts of people?
You know, it was very, very intense at first because these people were, I mean, they didn't trust anybody. Why are you doing this? You know,
right.
Basically.